Many years ago, when I started off, I did not graduate from high school, and I could only get laboring jobs. And my first laboring job was washing dishes in the back of a small hotel. And over time, I worked in construction, and I worked in factories and sawmills. I know a lot about sawmills. I worked on farms and ranches, and I worked on a ship in the North Atlantic. When I was 23 years old, I was working on a farm and sleeping on the hay in the farmer's barn. At the end of the harvest, I was uneducated, I was unskilled, and I was once more unemployed. And when I could no longer find a laboring job, like you, I got into sales. Sales is the ultimate default job in our society. Nobody goes forward into sales as we fall back into sales when nothing else is working. It's like driving a car and backing up and hitting something. Whoomp! You get out to see what it is, and it's a sales job. And so we say, well, I will give that a try and see what happens. And sometimes your friends say, when are you going to get a real job? Because some people don't believe that sales is a real job. However, the 80-20 rule applies. 20% of people who get into sales realize that this is a great opportunity, that if you sell really well, you can earn more than a doctor or a lawyer or even a politician. You can make a wonderful living in selling, and you can fulfill all of your dreams. In the Western world, 5% of millionaires are salespeople who have sold all their lives for another company, but they sold a lot, and they earned a lot, and they invested the money carefully. So it's possible for you to achieve all your dreams in this field if you become good in selling. So I got into sales, and the only job I could get was knocking on doors, cold calling from door to door. And I had no training and no experience. The only thing I could think of was to work hard. At least it wasn't like working on a farm or working on a ship. It was clean work. So I was told that selling is not really a selling job. It's really a rejection job. And the more rejections you get, the more sales you'll make. This was the totality of my sales training. So I used to get up earlier and earlier each day so I could knock on more doors so I could be rejected more often. And I began starting at 6, 7, or 8 o'clock in the morning when people came to work, and I would knock on doors all day. And in the evenings, I would go out and knock on doors of homes and apartments. I would sometimes work 12 to 14 hours a day. I worked 30 days before I made my first sale. This is not a good way to live, I can tell you that. I was sleeping on the floor of a friend's apartment. I had one change of clothes. I would have to wash out my shirt in the sink at night. I had one tie which came off and clicked back on, and one pair of shoes which were too big for me. So when I walked, it was like walking with swim fins. Ka-plop, ka-plop, ka-flop, ka-flop. And I had to lean forward so my shoes didn't fall off. If I ran, my shoes would fall off. So this was my start. And after about 6 months of knocking on doors and earning just enough to stay alive, I noticed that there was one man in my company who was earning 10 times as much as anyone else. And he wasn't even working very hard. He would start work at 9 or 9:30. He would go out, or a client would come into the office, or he would go out and visit a client. He would have lunch with another prospective customer. He would make sales in the afternoon, and he would quit at 4:30 or 5. And he went to beautiful restaurants, and he had nice vacations. He had a beautiful apartment, and he had a pocket full of money, and he had no financial problems, and he was selling the same product that I was selling out of the same office at the same price to the same people under the same conditions. So I did something, about 6 months later, I did something that changed my life. I still recall this changed my life. In your lifetime, by the way, you have experiences, and it's usually an idea or a concept. Something happens and your life goes in a different direction. And this was the transforming moment for me. I took a deep breath and I went and I asked him, what are you doing differently from me? Why are you making so many sales? And he said, well, show me your sales presentation and I'll critique it for you. I said, my what? He said, your sales presentation. I said, you show me yours and I'll show you mine. Because I didn't have a sales presentation. I was doing what I call the blah, blah sell. I would find a prospect and go blah, 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 until they would start looking at their watch and looking away, and say, thank you very much for coming in. Let me think about it. Call me back next year, maybe, or leave me some information. And I would go from place to place and get the same response. He said, no. He said, there's a process, a logical process of selling. And the process has 7 steps. And the first step is to prospect and to speak to the right people. The second is to build rapport and trust with those people. The third is to ask them questions and identify their needs accurately. The fourth step is to make a presentation and show them your product. The fifth step is to answer their objections. The sixth step is to close the sale. And the seventh step is to get resales and referrals. Now, he probably didn't tell me all that, but what he did give me was a very simple presentation. And instead of going out and talking, I went out and asked questions, and my sales went up. And I remember people treated me differently when I asked them questions as opposed to talking. And so I began to ask more and better questions. Then I began to read on sales, and I read everything I could find. And then I would listen to audio programs, and then I would actually started going to sales seminars. And I did 2 things which really had a profound effect on my career. Number one is when I heard a new thing, I would immediately try it out. I noticed that many other people heard the same things, but they took no action. They wouldn't take any action at all, whereas when I heard something new, I would run out and I would try it out quickly. Number 2 thing that I learned is that nothing works. Even the best ideas don't work. At least they don't work the first time. And sometimes they don't work the first 5 times or the first 10 times. So I made a resolution that if I heard a good idea, I would try it 5 or 10 times before I passed judgment. 10% of people think about what they want and how to get it most of the time. They think about what they want and how to get it. So I'm going to give you a simple word that you can use for the rest of your career, which will double your income. And the word is how. Say how. Okay. From now on, whenever you have a goal, the only question you ask is how. Whenever you have a problem to solve, the only question you ask is how. If you have an obstacle to overcome, the only question you ask is how. Now, the wonderful thing about the word how is that it triggers ideas, and the ideas are all for actions that you can take immediately. And when you take those ideas, you start to get feedback, which enables you to correct your course and take even better steps to achieve your goals. So the average person, when they have a problem, complains and blames other people about the problem. Top people, when they have a problem or goal, they simply say, how can I achieve this goal? And they try this, and they try that, and they try something else, but it never occurs to them that they will not eventually be successful. So they think about what they want and how to get it most of the time.